Hello， 大家好，我是 Sophia。这一期的视频呢，给大家提供一个快速提高 PTE 分数的备考思路。大概在19年12月份的时候，我带过一个学生，这个学生从口语的双10分到74分的口语，只花了2天的时间。那他是怎样做到的呢？一会儿呢，我会给大家看一下这个学生在课前做的模考测试，口语的发音流利度双10分的一个答题过程。以及我们在2天学习之后纠正的发音和流利度的一些大问题，学生再次去做这套模拟考试的一个答题过程。第2次测试呢，他的口语就有74分了，流利度呢也达到了89分的一个分数。大家可以去看一下前后的对比。在这里呢，我先给大家讲一下我们这样做的一个思路。实际上我这个学生他要去参加的考试并不是 PTE， 而是培生集团出的另一个考试，叫做 Versant Test。熟悉我的小伙伴呢知道我是教 PTE 的。当时这个学生他找我学习呢，也是因为他妈妈的朋友认识我，所以呢推荐过来学习。实际上我是没有教过 Versant Test 这个考试的，但是出于这份信任呢，我带了这个学生。我大概花了1-2个小时的时间，在 Versant Test 的官网去了解了一下这个考试。我发现它考试的题型和我们的 PTE 特别相似，比如说都有 read aloud repeat sentence 这样的题型，但是难易程度上来讲的话 Versant Test 要简单非常多。当时我这个学生找我的时候呢是周5，他大概在周2的时候有第2次 Versant Test 的考试，也就是我们只有3天的时间，所以呢周5我就立马让他去做了一下 PTE 考试的模拟测试，录一个视频给我，因为这样的话能够让我最直观快速的了解他的一个现状。考完之后呢，他就拿到了这样一个分数哈。这个学生年纪比较小，3个小时的考试他都没有坐得住，整个考试呢也没有什么分数，口语呢是双10分，然后呢他就把这个录屏发给我了。在周6和周日的时间里呢，我们就针对他模考的答题情况，哪些地方流利度丢分了，内容丢分了，发音丢分了，我就这么给他一个题一个题这样去过。课后呢，我就让他去练习这些题目，练到我给的一个参考标准。就在2天之后的周1，我让他把这一套模考题再做一遍，也就是说是在这种作弊的状态下，知道自己的问题在哪，纠正过错误之后去做这次模拟，这是一个最快的方式，让他明白怎样作答，机器才会给高分。所以呢，这个学生做完了之后，发现自己可以达到74分的一个水平，他就知道 Versant Test 他该怎样去答了。所以他周2去考试的时候 Versant Test 的口语也考了72分的成绩。大家听完了这个案例的分享，不知道有没有启发？为什么我们要利用好这个模考呢？如果说你的目标分数是65或者是79，不管你是在作弊的状态下，还是直接备考充分了之后去做这样一次测试，你都拿不到你的目标分数的话，那你就没有必要去参加正式考试了。如果说你也想快速的提分的话，我特别建议大家去做这个模拟，自己可以回过头去找自己在每一个题型上丢分的地方，去找哪个地方自己还可以做得更好。然后之前呢，我也给大家分享了4个满分的模考录屏，你们可以去对照你的作答流利度、发音内容上和我的作答有些什么样的出入，找到了问题之后呢，就加强练习，这样的话我们就可以快速提分啦。希望我的分享对你有帮助，也祝大家早日考到自己的理想分数。如果说你喜欢我的视频的话，别忘了关注和点赞哦。我是 Sophia， 我们下一期再见，拜拜。
The colonists were not just fighting against a king who was determined to use his own prerogative. They were also fighting against a parliament. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonists were not just fighting against a king who was determined to use his own prerogative. They were also fighting against a parliament which believed that it alone should raise taxes and control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible as science. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. The most obvious change is that 46% of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went here, it was only the third year that women. It was only the third year that women have been admitted, and about 70 of students. The most obvious change is that 46% of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went here, it was only the third year that women have been admitted, and about 70% of students were male. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It was important now to be able to read and make sense of these images, as it has been able to. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It is also important now to be able to read and make sense of these images, as it has been to be able to read ordinary text.我吐了。In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from country to another in Second World War. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity prices. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was the heir to luxury. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic, and one of the main drivers, in addition to the global market price, is the communications revolution. A globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural and political rather than purely economic, and one of the main drivers in addition to the global marketplaces is the communications revolution. Wow.
Understanding of mathematics is vital in most science subjects.
Understanding of mathematics is vital for most of the subjects. If we work on this together, we will get through it quickly.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
The new old professor used to work for a World Bank. Shy.
Many environment experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
Many of us are very concerned of the future of the planet.
Graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to gender.
The graph shows the percentage of smokers according to the gender.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
The meeting is on the third Wednesday of the month.
We can go anywhere, do anything, achieve any height.
We can go anywhere, do anything, and achieve any height.
Construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed in 1931.
Construction of this building in New York is on 1991.
People under 70 have a higher quality of life than those over 70.
People under 17 have a higher quality of life than over 17. Than those over 17.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles.
The area of Canada is about 3.1 million square miles. 哎呀，天哪，好烦啊这个。This graph shows the different road traffic in Great Britain in 1952 to 2005. As we can see, the number of motor vehicles is higher than the number of cars and taxis, and they are both increased. They are both increasing. this picture shows the employment rate from 1971 to 2006 in UK, and as we can see, from 1981 to 1985, the employment rate has reached to the top, and it is keep increasing. But however, from 1997, this rate have decreased. Sales by quarter. This picture shows three products sales by quarter. As we can see, in each quarter, the product C is always the best sold, and in quarter one, it reaches the highest point, which is over $12,000, and in quarter 4 and 3, product Y is better than product X, but in quarter 2 and quarter 1, product This picture shows the life expectancy according to gender in Australia from 1995 to 2005. As we can see, the life expectancy of males is always lower than the life expectancy of females. The life expectancy of females is all above 80 in the 10 years, but the male's life expectancy is below 80. This picture shows the adult literacy by sex in different regions, and the world average rate is for male is 87, and for female is 77, and the highest literacy rates occurs in Latin America and the Caribbean. It is reached to 91 and 89. Oh, Philippines. This graph shows the economic conditions in Philippines from 2000 to 2004. As we can see, in 2000, the consumer price index is higher than the GDP, but after 2001, the GDP is always higher than the consumer price index, and it reaches the highest point in 2004, which is 140.
Take the coffee industry. The figures are roughly these. The coffee market in the world is worth about 60 billion. The growers get about 5.5 billion. 10 years ago, the market was about 30 billion, and the growers got a third of that. What has happened? What has happened is that well-meaning people, Americans, Germans, Europeans, decided that they would help Vietnam. And so, they created a coffee industry there, which is now the second biggest producer in the world. This has had serious effects on other countries like Colombia that depend on coffee exports.
The coffee industry has changed in the 10 years, and it is due to the American, German, and they come to Vietnam to start a coffee industry. And Vietnam is the biggest coffee producer. This has significant impact to Colombia, which is the second coffee producer, which is depends on coffee. Cool.
You can see that the two charts each give quite a different picture of the performance of boys and girls in
who was determined to use his own prerogative. They will also fight against a parliament which believed that the law should raise taxes and control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonies were not just fight against the king, who was determined to use it. The main difference on this occasion was that the colonies were not just fight against the king, who was determined to use his own prerogative. They will also fight against the parliament, which believed that it and it alone should raise taxes to control revenues, rights which had been won in the previous century. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible, as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. A scientist's evidence is thought to be reliable because it will have been tested and verified at every stage. This is not, of course, infallible, as scientists are subject to human error as much as the rest of us. The most obvious change is that 46 of college's undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women have been admitted, and about 70% of the students were male. The most obvious change is that 46 of the college's undergraduates are now women. When I went there, it was only the third year that women have been admitted, and about 70% of the students were male. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It's as important now to be able to read and make sense of those images as it has been to be able to read ordinary text. As we progress into the 21st century, communications are becoming faster and faster. Think of the millions of different media images you are bombarded with every day. It's as important now to be able to read and make sense of those images as it has been to be able to read ordinary text. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity price. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was the height of luxury. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity price. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In the past, wars have led to inflation and higher commodity price. Fighting disrupts trade and prevents raw materials from being shipped from one country to another. In Second World War Britain, a banana was the height of luxury. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of those changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. And one of the main drivers in addition to global marketplace is the communications revolution. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of the changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. Globalization refers to a set of changes rather than a single change. Many of these changes are social, cultural, and political rather than purely economic. And one of the main drivers in addition to the global marketplace is the communications revolution.
An understanding of mathematics is vital for most science subjects.
Understanding of mathematics is vital for most of the science subjects.
If we work on this together, we'll get through it quickly.
If we work on this together, we will get through it quickly.
The new law professor used to work for the World Bank.
Your old professor used to work for World Bank.
Many environment experts are very concerned about the future of our planet.
Many of us are very concerned about the future of the planet.
The graph shows the percentage of people who smoke according to gender.
The graph shows the percentage of the people who are smoking according to gender.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
The meeting is always on the third Wednesday of the month.
We can go anywhere, do anything, achieve any height.
We can go anywhere, do anything, and achieve any height.
Construction of the Empire State Building in New York was completed in 1931.
Construction of the Empire Building in New York is considered on 1931.
People under 70 have a higher quality of life than those over 70.
People under 17 have a higher quality of life than those over 17.
The area of Canada is more than 3.8 million square miles.
The area of Canada is over 3.8 million square miles. This graph is about the road traffic in Great Britain in billions vehicle kilometers, including all motor vehicles and cars and taxis from 1952 to 2005. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in all motor vehicles in 2005, which is about 500. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in cars and taxis in 1952, which is about 50. It is clear that different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph shows the UK unemployment rate in percentage from 1971 to 2006. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 1985, which is about 12. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 1971, which is about 4. It is clear that different years have different figures. If the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph is about Australian life expectancy at birth in gender from years 1995 to 2005. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2005. This graph shows the sales by quarter of 3 products in dollars in quarter, including products X, Y, and Z. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in quarter 1, which is about 12,000. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in quarter 2, which is about 1,000. It is clear that different quarters have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph is about the Australian life expectancy at birth in gender from years 1995 to 2005. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2005, which is about 85. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 1995, which is about 75. It is clear that different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph is about adult literacy by region. Literacy. This graph is about adult literacy by region and sex from 2000 to 2004, including World, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia and Arab states. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is about 91. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in Sub-Saharan Africa, which is about 53. It is clear that different regions have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future. This graph is about this graph is about the economic conditions in Philippines from 2000 to 2004, including consumer price index and GDP. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2004, which is about this figure is about the economic conditions in Philippines from 2000 to 2004, including consumer price index and the GDP. According to the graph, the highest figure is shown in 2004, which is about 140. According to the graph, the lowest figure is shown in 2000, which is about 100. It is clear that different years have different figures. In conclusion, if the figures continue this trend, it will be hard to predict in the future.
Take the coffee industry. The figures are roughly these. The coffee market in the world is worth about 60 billion. The growers get about 5.5 billion. 10 years ago, the market was about 30 billion, and the growers got a third of that. What has happened? What has happened is that well-meaning people, Americans, Germans, Europeans, decided that they would help Vietnam. And so, they created a coffee industry there, which is now the second biggest producer in the world. This has had serious effects on other countries like Colombia that depend on coffee exports.
This lecture is talking about coffee industry. The coffee industry. This lecture is talking about the coffee industry. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that the coffee market is about 60 billion. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that 10 years ago the coffee market was about 70 billion. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that American, German, European helped Vietnam and created a coffee industry. In conclusion, this lecture is talking about the coffee industry.
You can see that the two charts each give quite a different picture of the performance of boys and girls in the two key subjects of maths and English. It shows that in English, girls consistently outperform boys over a period of 6 years, achieving scores about 10% above their male peers. There is quite a different picture when we look at the maths results, with no real difference between genders in the results. What is the explanation for these key differences? To answer this question, researchers look at biological and cognitive factors and a range of social factors. The interaction between these different components in early childhood development are seen as maintained and reinforced in the school context, and this leads to distinct gender patterns of behavior in skills with direct consequences for school performance and achievement. The argument uses this evidence to show that biological factors, such as patterns of cognitive development, are closely linked to social factors, such as learned gender categories. These cognitive skills are learned both preschool and subsequently at school, supported by the responses of teachers, creating a reinforcement of patterns.
This lecture is talking about the performance of boys and girls in English and math. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that there is no real difference in math between boys and girls. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that biological and social factors impact these skills. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that biological factors such as patterns of cognitive development and social factors such as learned through the gender categories. In conclusion, this is talking about the performance of boys and girls in English and math.
In our survey, over 100 CEOs who had recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most integration effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable, as many of the IT issues are extremely complex, and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved, and there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention, sales, marketing and business development on the one hand, and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents.
This lecture is talking about in which areas that needs the most efforts. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that information technology is the area that needs the most efforts. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that there are many complex issues in IT. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that IT has a significant impact. According to the lecture, the speaker mentioned that sales and marketing are significant. In conclusion, this lecture is talking about in which areas that needs the most efforts.
Which country has the third largest population in the UK?
Scotland. Wales. Scotland. Okay.
Camels are most likely to be found in what habitat?
Desert.
On a compass, which direction is the direct opposite of southwest?
Northeast.
What do most successful businesses aim to do? Make a profit, declare bankruptcy, or comply with audits?
Make a profit.
What is it called when the price of goods and services steadily increases over a period of time?
Inflation.
What mistake has the student made when trying to access the site?
Invalid password.
Algebra, calculus, and trigonometry are divisions of which academic field?
Mathematics.
What campus building would you go to if you wanted to borrow a book or magazine?
Library.
Is a profit a loss in funds or a gain in funds?
A gain in funds.
What energy source does this light bulb need in order to function?
Electricity.